So this is part 2 of Unit 8. So one of the last things we learned in Unit 8 was about limiting and excess reactants and how to recognize that. So a limiting reactant is the reactant that limits the amount of product you can make, but it is also the reactant that runs out, and this means that it is completely used up. Whereas your excess reactant, kind of like the word excess implies, means that this reactant is left over. And so one thing to keep in mind is that reactants are only on the left side of your equation. So if you're given a multiple choice question and you're asked, what's the limiting, what's excess reactant, don't choose something that's actually a product. Okay, that's the first step. They are reactants, and so there are only a few options. Now, in a graph, this can look multiple ways. So you kind of want to know how to identify something as being a reactant and something as being a product based on what it looks like in a graph. So if we have the amount, and let's say it's being measured in grams, if I have a line that starts high, so I start with a certain amount, and over time it's decreasing, meaning it's being used up, and then it levels off. Okay, that would mean that's the excess reactant. It doesn't go all the way to zero. However, if I have a line that starts off at a certain amount, so starts at more than zero, and over time it just goes to zero and then levels out. Well, that would be our limiting reactant. If I have a line that starts at zero and just kind of increases and then levels out, that's a product because you didn't have any at the beginning and then you slowly made some. And then when the limiting reactant ran out, your product kind of stayed the same. You couldn't make any more, so it leveled out as well. And so you can see that in this graph. You can also see in a chart, you might get a description about it or something like that, but if we are given this equation of copper chloride plus aluminum producing aluminum chloride plus copper, and then we're given a description of what's happening in the reaction, where before we have some solid silver pieces. Well, since our equation says that aluminum is solid and we know aluminum is silver, that's our aluminum. And then we have this dark blue liquid, so that's going to be our copper chloride. Well, after the reaction has stopped, it says there's orangish brown solid. Well, we have a solid as copper, and we know copper is that color, so that's kind of our copper product that's being made. And we have a pale blue liquid. There's no mention of silver there, so that means the aluminum is limiting. It has run out. And we can see that because it's pale blue, we see that there is still some copper chloride left over, so that is in excess. And that's one thing to keep in mind, that you can look at limiting or excess reactants with a graph. You could look at it, you could be given a data table, multiple different ways to look at that. And so this is the very short Unit 8 Part 2 video.